When life gets unpredictable, preparation matters. In medicine, it's all about staying alert, ready for whatever comes through the door. On the road, it's no different. That's why Volvo designs vehicles to help anticipate risk, reduce harm, and protect lives. The Volvo XC90's advanced safety systems inspire confident decisions wherever the road takes you. The Volvo XC90, for life. Proud sponsor of the Pit Podcast. Learn more at volvocars.ca/safety.
Welcome back to the Elias Mackos Show. Well, the rise of the artificial intelligence program ChatGPT has universities asking tough questions as they begin to realize that this new form of technology is a bigger beast to tackle than they might have first anticipated. You know, I get the sense as we now, and this year we're going to be talking about the software and other artificial intelligence programs like it, I get the sense like ChatGPT talking about it is almost like talking about Google.com in 1998. It's akin to that. Now, let me tell you a story from across the border at Northern Michigan University. One professor was correcting papers for his philosophy class, and while correcting, he came across what he described as easily the best paper he has ever read. But immediately a red flag went up. How could he have just read the best thing he's ever read, right? So he goes to the student, and upon confronting the student, they admit they had used ChatGPT to write the paper. This is not an isolated case. Universities are now having to restructure some of their courses and take preventative measures to ensure that students don't use that platform for their own work. And here in Montreal, McGill has even released a statement reaffirming that, quote, with the emergence of the use of artificial intelligence chatbots in an academic context, McGill is actively looking to further strengthen the protection of its academic integrity. With more on this, we go to Andrew Piper, a professor of languages, literature, and cultures at McGill University, who studies the intersection of artificial intelligence and storytelling. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Listen, when I hear what you do at McGill, maybe you're the perfect person to talk about this. So, what as you perceive it, what kind of a threat or opportunity does artificial intelligence like ChatGPT present?
Well, it's both. That's the first thing we need to get our heads around. It's very clear. You mentioned a good example. It's really clear right now that this technology can produce high-quality human-level writing. And that can be in a setting at the university when it's writing essays. It can be generating stories. You can ask it questions and learn things from it. So it's really like the level of progress here has sped up considerably, and so people are scrambling to figure out what to do.
Among circles at McGill University, and maybe in your classroom, do you have any suspicions that maybe you've received work that might have been done with some help, shall we say?
Well, it's too early in the semester to know, and this kind of broke at the end of last semester, and so I didn't. Here's a funny story. So my fall class is called AI and Literature, and so we have a couple weeks where we play around with artificial intelligence to generate texts and see how they perform and see how they behave. And we spent a couple of weeks using the older tools and older technologies, and everyone was sort of like, oh, this is interesting, and I could see how this could kind of do some things and not others, but it's not great. And then at the very last class, ChatGPT dropped, and everyone was like, this is different. It's something we're all thinking about because it's very clear you absolutely, if you just give a standard essay assignment, it's completely the case that a student could just turn in something from ChatGPT or clean it up a little bit. So we have to start incorporating this into our classrooms.
I do want to get to the opportunity, but since we're on the topic of students using it maybe to cheat or to hand in work here, what do you think are the guardrails? Like, how are you going to protect against that? Let's talk a bit about how you fight back against tools when it comes to cheating.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a work in progress. I think a lot of my colleagues are talking about this. We're trying to figure out strategies. My very first approach is to really be candid and open and honest about it. Like, I bring it out in class. I demonstrate it with the students. I don't want to hide it. I want students to know about this technology. I want them to think about what it can and can't do. For me, the first step is just like getting it out in the open. And then, the second step is thinking about the way you create assignments. So this may be moving to more in-class writing. And it may also mean focusing more on like the stages of writing. So instead of just saying go home and write a paper and bring it back in, think about writing an outline, think about writing an abstract, think about writing a draft. And these kinds of things can help get you closer to what the students are doing. It makes it easier to tell if they're using a computer to do their assignment. So, there are many ways we can engage with the writing process to ensure that our students are doing authentic work.
We're with Andrew Piper from McGill University talking about ChatGPT, the artificial intelligence software that's being used for writing and a whole lot more right now. So, Andrew, I think about that and I say to myself, if one of the dead giveaways is when it's too perfect, the crazy thing is you could tell the artificial intelligence, well, write this 1,000-word error, but include 3 mistakes, and it'll do it, like that's where it gets, like, you can't even guard against, like, well, if it's too perfect, then we know, because you could just program it a different way. So let's talk about then the opportunity. How do we flip this narrative? And professors like yourself at McGill University, how do you think we can flip it to use it as an opportunity, as a tool?
Yeah, that's also a good question. And similarly, work in progress. I mean, this is all very, very new, right? So we're really kind of scrambling to catch up with this technology that's been just sort of thrown on our laps, which is something to keep in mind, right? We have yet again a tech company that's basically just said, hey, look at this shiny new thing. You all deal with it. And we're doing our best. And so, in terms of opportunities, it's very clear for certain kinds of tasks, like if foundational knowledge type questions, it's very good. So, at university, you're learning a lot of new high-level concepts. You're reading a lot of technical language. Some of that may be inaccessible to you, either because you're new to university or because of your educational background. And so it seems to me that this could be a way to help make information more digestible to students. So that's one way I use it in the class is I ask them a question. I get a lot of blank stares. It's clear people are a little confused about what's going on. So I bring up ChatGPT and I ask it the question, and then it kind of gives an answer. And we start to see what it's saying. We think about its answer. We reflect on it. We reflect on how the answer could be better or worse. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is kind of modeling a process where you're seeking out information, figuring out a way to make it digestible. So I think there's an opportunity just at that level of kind of clarification for students learning kind of harder concepts. That's sort of the first step.
As it stands right now, what would be the punishment? Let's say you were to catch a student in one of your courses at McGill who had used and was told not to, or they know better, they use it. What's the punishment right now for using a tool like this? What do you do?
Well, so it's not clear at the university yet what the policies are going to be. So McGill has this statement, but they haven't really taken any next steps to say students can or can't use it, or these are what the punishments would be, or because the other question is when is a little too much. In other words, one of the things I've talked to my students about in one of my classes where they're learning a lot of new technical skills is I've said, look, if it's the first time writing about a statistical test or something like that, maybe ChatGPT can help you with that sentence. It can kind of give you a schema of how to write out what it means to do a statistical test. Now, we want them in that process to flag that, right? To let me know that they're relying on this technology, but it can be helpful for them. And it may be different from class to class and from professor to professor. And so I think it's going to be a little tricky in the early stages to figure out a general policy of when you can use this as a writing aid and when you've basically circumnavigated the assignment entirely and just relied too much on it. And I think that boundary is going to be hard to figure out moving forward. And that's something. So I think the university's right to not just dive in with policies and bannings and all that kind of thing. I think we want to take it one step at a time.
Andrew, off the top of this hour, I did tell a story to our listeners about the technology website CNET, which had used artificial intelligence to publish 70 or so stories, and they didn't tell anyone. And then people looked into it and they found serious errors in 41 of the 70 stories, right? How overblown is our focus here on these new technologies, right? If when they're left to their own devices, they make tons of mistakes, are we maybe overestimating just how transformative a tool like this will be?
I think we have to be cautious for this problem of reliability. I think that doesn't mean this isn't going to be transformative. In other words, we're hitting human-level quality text that's going to have an impact in the world. It's going to do stuff, whether that's malicious, problematic, messy, or helpful. That's to be seen, but it's going to have an impact. That reliability question you're raising is a big one, and this is also why I try and really bring it front and center for the students, because they need to know that you have to be cautious when you rely on this thing for information, that it can get things wrong, it can make things up, it can invent sources. It doesn't have an ingrained sense of the truth like a human would. And so that's something everybody who uses it needs to be aware of and keep in mind, that its accuracy and reliability is not 100%, and therefore you have to be cautious and vigilant when you're using it.
Andrew, we have to leave it there. Really fascinating discussion. As we talked, I got a message from a listener who writes in on our text line. My son is a secondary 5 high school teacher, just caught a student using AI on an assignment. Needless to say, she got a 0. So there's one take from what's happening in high schools, and I can't imagine how they're dealing with it there. Andrew, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
That's Andrew Piper, professor of languages, literatures, and cultures at McGill University, studies the intersection of AI and storytelling.